Welcome, and thank you for joining today's webinar, The New Frontier of B2B Marketing, Drive Measurable Results with Performance CTV Advertising, presented by Mountain and Martech. I'm your host, Cynthia Ramsaran. Before we begin, if you have any audio issues, click the screen to enable your audio. If you have any viewing issues, you can use the Q&A section at any time to communicate with us. You can send questions directly to the speaker about his presentation at any time. Without further ado, let's get to the presentation. Joining us today is Ali Hayeri, VP of Marketing at Mountain. Welcome, Ali. I'll turn things over to you.
All right, thanks so much, Cynthia. I appreciate it. And thank you everyone for tuning in. I guess my background is also tied to the subject matter here today, and I suspect a lot of the people who are tuning in are B2B marketers. My background is firmly in the realm of B2B marketing, from startups to Fortune 500 companies, agency side, brand side. I've always found myself working in B2B marketing one way or another. So when we decided to do this presentation, I was kind of eager to be the one who presented this because I felt like I was talking to my own people. You all, again, presuming you're B2B marketers, you all deal with the same challenges that I do. And in fact, I run a B2B marketing organization today here at Mountain. And so what I really want to do here today is really speak to you as a peer. I know, as we'll talk about in just a moment, the challenges related to B2B marketing. And I also know that a good new ad channel that actually performs doesn't really come by that often for us B2B marketers. And so that's why I'm kind of excited to share this with, again, my peers here today. But again, my name is Ali, and happy to talk to you all today. So just diving right in. Our big thesis is that connected TV is now a truly optimal channel for B2B brands to not just reach their audiences, but to actually drive meaningful results from their campaigns. As we'll talk about in just a second, there's a pretty well-established playbook for B2B marketers, and I really feel confident from our own experience, seeing real data myself, that there's actually real viability here for a new channel to make its way into that well-established B2B marketing playbook. And so what we'll talk about first is just why CTV is that viable channel now for us as B2B marketers, how CTV can kind of cut through that clutter. And then we'll take a moment, which I think is really crucial to the success of CTV, is obviously audience targeting. We'll take a moment to talk about the different types of audience targeting you can do as a B2B advertiser. And then finally, we'll talk about something that's also incredibly important to B2B marketers. This is specifically one of those things that we probably tease B2C marketers on because they don't care about measurement as much as we do in certain respects. And so we'll talk about measurement of CTV and how it's quite similar to measuring any other channel that you find yourself advertising on today as an advertiser. But so digging in here, I mentioned this a moment ago, and the way I kind of characterize the difference between B2C and B2B marketing to a lot of folks is that B2C marketing, it's kind of wide open, whether it's a bus stop ad, a billboard, display advertising, whatever it is, it's kind of wide open, all of the options that are available to you to hit your target prospect, depending on who they are and what you're selling. And for some marketers, that's really exhilarating. For others, that's kind of terrifying. Now, the difference with B2B marketing is that it's a pretty well-established playbook. We're all generally operating under the same constraints. We advertise during business hours. People tend to read a certain set amount of publications. They tend to, in some industries, they go to conferences or they don't. It's pretty well established. And as a B2B marketer, there's also like well-established channels for us too. We just talked about event marketing for a second. All B2B marketers do some manner of email marketing, They again probably set up their marketing automation platforms in very similar ways. We all know about drip campaigns and setting criteria for those. Paid search, when it comes to advertising, paid search is probably the most common ad channel for B2B marketers, because the nature of B2B marketing is you're advertising to people who are researching. People are researching solutions to solve their problems. And paid search really seizes on that act of researching. And so that's why you see so many B2B marketers being dependent on paid search as a channel. And when it comes to social media marketing, you see a disproportionate focus on LinkedIn advertising, which we'll talk about in a moment. I have thoughts on on LinkedIn as an advertising channel. And then in terms of the bait that we use in our campaigns, we're again using the greatest hits here: webinars, white papers, blogs, case studies. I suspect everybody who saw this probably nodded their head and said, yeah, I do all of the above. This is all certainly very familiar to me. And same for me, working at early stage, just newly funded startups, and working at, again, Fortune 500 companies. We were all doing the same things. And in some way, it was kind of equalized in that sense. And so come into this conversation with that frame of mind. If everyone from the early stage startup to the Fortune 500 company is doing the same thing, they're doing drip campaigns, they're doing paid search, they're doing LinkedIn ads, how do you differentiate yourself considering those circumstances? It's not like you're going to go start getting bus ads or billboards out there. You need something that is a differentiator, but is still incredibly accountable, something that still performs. We don't have that luxury as B2B marketers to just totally try out things that are utterly unproven. We're I'd argue more accountable for our metrics and our budget than our B2C counterparts in that sense. And so kind of digging in a little bit further on these ad channels that I talked about just a moment ago, paid search and social are certainly useful. And again, there's good reason why B2B marketers use these channels. We talked about paid search. I'd say on the LinkedIn side, the interesting thing there is, I think the appeal of LinkedIn to a lot of B2B marketers is obviously the targeting capability based off of, say, firmographic data, self-declared data on someone's LinkedIn profile. It's tantalizing as a marketer to target people in the business world when you have this, definitive social media platform for business professionals. And again, you look at that targeting criteria and you're saying, yeah, I could just hit my prospect very directly. But the problem is that, and there's a variety of problems, is that first, there's quite a bit of competition. You're not the first B2B marketer to think about needing paid search or needing LinkedIn advertising. You got a bunch of other advertisers. In the case of paid search, it's one of these unique ad media that you're advertising in a manner where your ads are shown alongside your competitors. It's not a lot of use cases in digital advertising where that's happening, where you are showing your ads specifically next to a competitor. Display advertising, it's a grab bag of ads that can be shown to someone. But in search advertising, your ad is shown alongside your competitors, which is a little bit difficult for you. Because someone can choose among the whole set of ads that's shown in front of them. And so to be more persuasive than others, I mean, it's just a hard position to be in. You would prefer it if you had someone's undivided attention. We'll get to that in just a moment. LinkedIn also has its own problems. One is that, LinkedIn is a place that people go to for their own careers. It's like any other social media advertising. The advertising itself is interruptive. And what I mean by that is people don't go to LinkedIn to see advertisements. People don't go to Facebook to see advertisements. They're there for social needs. And it just so happens that advertisements are just kind of like shown to them along the way. And so it's easily ignorable. The other problem with LinkedIn is, and you as B2B marketers, you've probably all noticed this yourselves, is that all of the ads look the same because everyone's taking the same B2B marketing playbook to LinkedIn. when I go on LinkedIn, I should just do it right now. If I just log on to LinkedIn and I just scroll through it, I can't tell you how many ebook download ads I'm going to get from other B2B marketers who want me to kind of convert on their form to download some sort of ebook or Gartner report, whatever it may be. And, that stuff all starts looking the same after a while. And from a metric standpoint, it's something that I don't need to teach any of you here. I'm sure you all know from your experience advertising on LinkedIn is that the performance is different. I believe the average click-through rate of a LinkedIn ad is less than 0.5%. LinkedIn tends to be useful for sort of content marketing campaigns, top funnel initiatives. But if you're ever in a position, I always kind of paint this scenario to my own team. If you only had budget for one campaign and you needed to drive leads, 10 times out of 10, you're not doing that campaign on LinkedIn. You're probably going to do something on paid search or elsewhere. LinkedIn is a content marketing play for most marketers. 10 times out of 10, a little too dramatic. Let's say 9 times out of 10. But I think the case has been made here that there certainly is a paid search and social dependency for B2B marketers, but are we really getting what we want out of the social advertising? And I don't know about you all, but we're certainly tapped out on our paid search advertising. There's no more juice left to squeeze on that front. And so before we get into why connected TV makes sense for B2B marketers, it's worth kind of taking a moment and thinking about why not linear TV? Why wouldn't you advertise as a B2B advertiser on linear TV? And obviously, TV is fantastic, linear television. We're talking about broadcast TV. Obviously, it's great for attention, and there's tremendous prestige to running advertising on televisions. But obviously, the first thing here is the fact that it's incredibly cost prohibitive. The beautiful thing about digital advertising is programmatic. You can pay as you go, you can scale up as needed, and you have precision targeting. Whereas with linear television, it's like advertising the old way, where it's content-based. I'm going to be advertising to the entire viewership of a given piece of content. The only time I have ever seen B2B advertising on broadcast TV is like the 2 times in my life that I watched PGA golf on a Sunday afternoon, and I saw an ad for Boeing and General Electric. And so, you could say that they identified their target audience as people who watch golf, but there's no way that was a high penetration of their target audience. And so it's kind of obvious why you don't see a glut of B2B advertising on broadcast television today. Again, it's because it's expensive, and B2B marketers know better. They know that it's an inefficient way to get precision targeting of their target audience. And so connected television changes the game for B2B advertisers, and TV is no longer off limits. It's absolutely a viable channel. And so I'm going to be talking, with regards to the features and capabilities that I'm talking about here, it's not because I'm kind of giving you some sort of infomercial, but I'm going to be using our own platform as an illustrative example of how to actually do a lot of these tactics as a B2B marketer. But feel free to kind of take this as you're evaluating any other platform in terms of capabilities that you're looking for. But again, I'll be speaking through the lens of Mountain's own platform. And again, it's kind of, there's 2 really key components to the effectiveness of CTV to a B2B marketer. Whichever platform you're using needs to have incredibly robust audience targeting that's particularly useful to a B2B marketer. And it also needs to have the capability for you to be able to track the performance of your campaigns effectively in the manner that you're already familiar. Really, the best possible scenario for you as a B2B marketer is to have a CTV ad platform that feels indistinguishable from the other digital marketing platforms that you use. And so it'd be useful if this platform sort of spoke your language. Let you do audience targeting like you do on a paid search platform or on a social platform. Let you measure your campaigns, say in Google Analytics, or using metrics that are already familiar to you. So let's talk a little bit further about that. And so CTV, as we talked about before, it helps you cut through the noise. Now let's think about it strictly through the lens of a B2B marketer. What would a B2B marketer look for with a TV campaign? Or what sort of specific benefits would they get from running campaigns like this? So starting with running campaigns outside of work hours. Now you can certainly, have your ads seen on LinkedIn outside of work hours, but if you look at LinkedIn's traffic, a bulk of that traffic is happening during work hours. Similarly with paid search, you can run your paid search ads 24 hours a day, but you're going to notice that most of your performance comes on weekdays during business hours. In the case of connected television, specifically with a platform like ours, where we focus our inventory on top flight networks, we have this concept of living room quality where we constrain our delivery to like premier well-known channels like CNN, ABC, Bravo. The value here for a B2B marketer is that someone who is a B2B marketing professional, your target audience, is going to be watching television at any hour of the day. And they're going to be able to be sort of reached with your advertising, no matter when it is that they're actually consuming your consuming content. So again, you're not just capturing them during work hours when they're doing their work-related research. You can now actually hit your target audience during off hours. You also have total share of voice. When we have a metric in connected television advertising called completion rate. And completion rate is a measure of how frequently the ads are actually completed. Someone actually see the ad all the way through to completion. The average completion rate is around 98%. So if you're aspiring to get someone's attention span, you don't want an ignorable ad unit like you see oftentimes on social media platforms. This is a great opportunity for that, especially as a B2B marketer. Your whole ad is going to be seen in its entirety, which is very valuable from a share of voice standpoint. Also, there's this new thing for B2B marketers where, as B2B marketers, you're constantly advertising to people in, say, trade publications or on professional networks or in search advertising along other advertisers in your own category. It's not a lot of scenarios as a B2B marketer where you're necessarily having your ads shown alongside B2C ads. And that's going to be something that's going to happen on connected television. During a commercial break, your ad is likely to be seen alongside other B2C ads. And so it kind of frees you up from a targeting standpoint again, in terms of being able to have your ad be the only B2B ad that someone's seeing. Likely you'll be the only one during a sort of commercial break. You'll likely be the only B2B ad that someone will actually see. Now, also thinking about the funnel, another common way that we think about all of our marketing efforts as B2B marketers, CTV for B2B marketers can really help you impact every aspect of the funnel, top, middle, and bottom. There's a variety of ways to actually target people based off of where they sit in the funnel. Perhaps you're trying to just capture people who have an interest in a certain category. You can identify an audience that has a certain categorical interest in some sort of, product. Or you can find people who are in market for specific solutions. And you can use your targeting capability for that as well. And then if you're really talking about bottom funnel type folks who are really close to conversion, you can treat CTV as a retargeting platform as well. You can actually do retargeting on connected television. So people who are actually visiting your website, you can keep the message going by actually serving them ads on television as well. So it creates this full immersion, and you can also have this full life cycle of marketing against your target prospects, no matter where they stand in that customer decision journey. You have that capability with this channel to reach them. You can also segment your messaging too. So if you want to serve different variations of your creative based off of where someone sits in the funnel, you can do that. You can segment your audience accordingly, just like you would with any other platform. You can create different campaigns based off of different funnel stages with varying messages to compel users one way or another. So that capability of thinking about the funnel and thinking about full immersion certainly exists on this sort of platform. Now, thinking about audience targeting as a capability, one type of advertising, or one method of audience targeting, I should say, that is known to B2B marketers and used on other platforms is CRM data. Showing up to an ad platform, having your audience data compiled in some sort of way, and using that as the basis for the targeting of your campaign on a platform. And you can certainly do that on a platform like ours, for example, where you can bring your CRM data, upload that, that list gets matched, and use that as the basis for your campaigns. So whether it's some sort of loyalty campaign, you want to run a campaign against the audience that you've uploaded that already has a familiarity with you and your brand, you can certainly do that. If you want to, I mean, really, I'm kind of speaking to you all. You all probably do some sort of like matched audience advertising. There's different use cases for it. Really, you could take that same sensibility that you have related to these matched audience campaigns on any of these platforms, and you can apply it here, which kind of brings me to like the broader point here, is that whole idea of making this channel indistinguishable from your other performance marketing channels. Allowing you to target and run your campaigns and measure your campaigns in the same manner that you do those other campaigns, that you use these other platforms. So same flies with your CRM lists and your list-based retargeting campaigns. You can take that same sort of approach here as well. Now, there's also a third-party audience targeting capability. This is something that would be of interest to anyone out there who is looking to do any sort of prospecting, identifying new audiences to reach with your campaigns. And so this could be complementary to maybe your retargeting campaigns or your list-based campaigns. You can do these prospecting campaigns. At Mountain, we're fully integrated with the Oracle Data Cloud. And the great thing about the Oracle Data Cloud is that you have tens of thousands of audiences available to you from a wide variety of audience data providers, many of which are B2B audiences. In a lot of instances, it's the same audience data providers that you're using on other ad platforms. And getting these like B2B specific audiences are fantastic for these types of campaigns. So, you know, whatever it is that you're actually, your category is, whatever it is that you're actually selling, you could go as broad or as granular as you'd like with the targeting of these campaigns. And there's a lot of like great in-market data, in-market audience audience segments that I've seen inside the Oracle Data Cloud that could be really used impactfully for these for these campaigns. So again, if you're a conversion-minded marketer, you can definitely find folks who are in these lists that are constantly refreshed, and you can run evergreen campaigns. This is another thing that is really important for a lot of B2B marketers, especially those that run a lot of paid search advertising, is creating these kind of always-on campaigns that reach their target audience. There's a lot of audience segments that could be used in that same manner here for the B2B crowd as well. Now, this is just a sampling of different types of audiences directly from the Oracle Data Cloud. It's not exhaustive in any sort of way, but just to kind of give you a sense, you could target broadly small businesses, people who are in the telecommunications industry. You get more narrow with it. You can create and/or statements when you're building your target audiences, and it's a lot of the sort of criteria that you would actually see on something like LinkedIn, for example, in terms of targeting people by a certain job title or company size. And again, further details such as owns a Discover Rewards credit card or uses a Windows 10 operating system. So combining this data with other audience segments gives you this, again, this capability to create a pretty interesting on target audience for your campaign. And what we've seen regularly is pretty healthy audience sizes. So you're going to be running an audience at scale quite effectively. And again, the targeting criteria can be pretty specific. I wouldn't say go too specific. You see this on other ad platforms as well. If you constrain your audience too much, then you're obviously going to limit your own delivery. But I've seen some campaigns that have had some pretty interesting criteria, combining a variety of audience segments together to have a great level of precision with the targeting that they have for their actual audience in their campaign. And then revisiting retargeting, as we talked about, we kind of focused on it as from a list-based approach. But in this case, again, you can do classic retargeting on connected television as well. So you can go ahead and pixel your website and retarget those site visitors with ads on their television. And it's great. Again, it kind of gives you that peace of mind that every aspect of your funnel is going to be covered with some level of advertising. But what's also great about retargeting capabilities is the control that you have over your audience criteria. So in the case of first-party audiences or retargeting audiences, you can target based off of on-site behaviors that people have. So, whether it's time spent on the site, pages viewed on the site, if you do have some sort of e-commerce component to your business, you can use that shopping cart as the basis for a lot of targeting capabilities as well. Average purchase size, cart abandonment, that could be used as the basis for your campaigns. But again, thinking of pages viewed, if you want to target those who visited a pricing page on your website with something a little bit more aggressive in terms of a call to action, as opposed to something like someone who's more top funnel, who's just perusing the website, you could kind of give them some more broad message. You have that flexibility here. Now let's talk about measurement for just a moment. I see some questions trickling into, which is fantastic. We'll get to a Q&A very shortly. Now, when we think about measurement for campaigns, this is definitely a benefit to connected television advertising compared to linear TV advertising. I don't want to belabor this point, but if you're doing linear TV advertising, it's not a whole lot in the way of measurement. Or at least precise measurement that you can really lean on. But in the case of CTV, there's a lot of measurement that is, again, going to feel quite familiar to a lot of digital marketers. And it's because we're speaking that same sort of language of measurement here. We're talking about impressions and site visits, return on ad spend, and spend generally. And so it helps you kind of measure that effectiveness of your campaign. And it also, depending on what your goal is, what your conversion goal is, it also lets you track revenue performance. So again, if you're a business that is transacting users on your website and you can directly measure revenue, you have that capability. You can track that revenue back into the ad platform and directly see the revenue implications of the advertising campaign that you're running. But also, if you're a more traditional B2B marketer where you're doing lead generation, you can still track conversions on our platform. So you can use the pixel to track conversions and see the performance of your campaigns, again, in terms of how it fared in driving leads on your website. So all of that, again, it should feel quite familiar to marketers. And so when you're doing your own analysis, it's going to feel familiar to the same type of analysis you're doing on other platforms. And on that topic of analysis, a lot of you are certainly using Google Analytics to measure the success of a wide variety of your sort of disparate marketing efforts. And connected television, at least in our platform, can also be tracked inside Google Analytics. And so, as users are being served ads on television and they go and they visit your website, through our verified visits technology, we have that ability to track that cross-device behavior as people are making the jump from the television impression over to visiting your website on some other household device. We have that capability of tracking those user visits and attributing those visits to your television campaign. And the great thing about verified visits too is the fact that it's accountability. So if those users end up converting on some other ad campaign that you're running, then that ad campaign is going to get that attribution for that visit. So it's different in that sense. And so again, having that data inside Google Analytics is great for you because then you can actually track that performance against the other channels that you're running. So you could see how it's stacking up against those other performance marketing channels that you're running here. And so just to kind of conclude here, the big takeaways from what we discussed here is that, I think most clearly, television is absolutely an effective option for B2B marketers when they use it as a performance marketing channel. And furthermore, the targeting and measurement capability of it, that's really what created the viability of CTV as a valid channel for a B2B marketer. Once the targeting and measurement kind of was put into place in a manner that felt familiar to B2B marketers, that's really what made it viable. And then going back to the original topic of that well-established B2B marketing playbook, it's really the differentiator. Kind of going back to that topic, when I think of my own competitive set, again, we're all doing the same things, not just in terms of the channels that we use, but tactically, we're all doing the same things. And so I need to think of methods that obviously help me stand out, help me reach my target audience differently than the other than the other competitors in my space. However, I need to make sure that these are accountable campaigns, that they actually perform. I don't have that luxury that a lot of brand marketers on the B2C side have, where they can just run campaigns and just sleep well at night because they feel like it's done something in terms of generating some level of awareness, but they don't have that expectation of accountability that a lot of B2B marketers have in terms of measuring everything and making sure that every single thing has some level of impact. Next, audience targeting strategies. How you choose to target your audiences on this platform, or on this channel, I should say, is really important. The variety of methods that you have on this platform is really kind of what makes this thing special. Whether it's traditional site-based retargeting, using your CRM data to do list-based retargeting, or if it's using third-party audiences to do some prospecting. This gives you a pretty full spread in terms of the ways that you can actually target your prospects. And again, kind of visualizing things as it relates to the marketing funnel, this gives you an opportunity to hit your target prospects no matter where they stand in that sort of customer journey. And so finally, the CTV measurement piece, again, having that done in a manner that's consistent with the measurement from the other types of channels that you use. So again, like paid search and paid social, the measurement of those types of campaigns, having this measurement feel familiar to that should be comforting as a B2B marketer. And so again, it feels like doing apples to apples analysis across different channels is a lot easier when you're talking about common metrics, as opposed to, if you were doing a lot of performance marketing digitally and linear TV advertising. It's apples and oranges, the manner in which you actually measure the effectiveness of these different ad channels. So other thing to kind of like keep in mind. But cumulatively, the point here is that CTV can be treated as a performance marketing channel. It can be used as a way to target your B2B audiences effectively, and you can also track the performance of those campaigns because, like you all, I know what it's like to have an expectation to be accountable for every single thing that I do. I don't have that. I love teasing B2C marketers for this. I don't have that luxury that a lot of them do when it comes to brand marketing campaigns. So that's all I got here. Cynthia, I understand we have some questions, so I'm going to throw it back to you here.
We do. Thanks, Ali.
Yeah.
We've got quite a few questions, and I'll just dive right in. We have Andrew and Lucas, both very interested in creating CTV creative. So the question is, what about creative? As a B2B firm, we don't have solid video asset for TV. What do we do?
Great question. Comes up a lot with our advertisers. There's a lot of approaches for this. If you know, for some advertisers, we have some where they've done video advertising before. You know, like a lot of these ad platforms have video ad units, and so they found themselves already doing some type of video advertising. And depending on how that was shot, there's scenarios where you can take your existing video assets and use that as the basis for your creative on television. Now, not to get in the weeds with it, the difficulty there is that the standards in terms of tech specs for a television ad on connected television are quite high. So it really depends on your source material, whether it sort of clears that bar or not. But there's a lot of folks, like you've mentioned, that just don't have any of that available to them today. And that totally makes sense. And there's a couple of options for you there as well. First is we have a partnership with a platform called QuickFrame. QuickFrame is a marketplace of all the people that would be involved to create a commercial for you. And what they do, which is great, is that they work with your budget. And we actually have a special relationship with them for Mountain clients, where you could get a certain packages available to you, depending on how much money you're looking to spend on your creative, as little as $10,000, where they can kind of soup to nuts create that campaign for you, create the creative, I should say, for you. Where you work closely with them, provide them whatever materials that you have, and their network of editors and motion graphics artists and everybody else who's really involved in the process are there to help make that creative for you. And then if you're a larger advertiser with a budget, some of you may have seen the announcement recently that we've acquired Maximum Effort, Ryan Reynolds' creative agency. We obviously have that capability internally as well. Really sort of depends on the budget, but knowing B2B marketers the way I do, I think that they don't necessarily have that scale of a budget. They're looking to be really efficient with their ad spend, in which case I'd encourage you to either look at QuickFrame or to reach out to us, and then we can you can work with us on the ad delivery and also work through QuickFrame through our own relationship with them. I think that would probably be the best bet in terms of B2B marketers getting the best bang for their buck.
Okay, and we have another question from Richard, who wants to know if there is an optimum video ad time that you'd recommend, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, etc.
Yeah, well, you nailed the two times there. 15 and 30 seconds are the two lengths, I should say, that are standard in CTV. Personally, I'd say 30-second is probably a better bet. In the case of B2B marketing, I feel like you're going to want that extra sort of runtime to get your message across. And so I'd say 30-second would probably be a better fit for B2B marketers. Now, I wouldn't use that time to kind of get a little carried away with over-explaining or a diagrammatic approach. I wouldn't do that necessarily, but I do think that that extra time is useful as a B2B marketer. In terms of platform data that we've seen, It sort of depends by vertical in terms of which runtime sort of performs better. It's sort of subjective, but it is limited to one of the two, 15-second or 30-second.
Okay. And we have a best practice question from Tiffany, who asks, is it possible or advisable to generate website traffic and lead gen through CTV?
Absolutely. That's if there's one takeaway that you're going to have from this time that we've spent together today, it's hopefully that you can certainly use this as a channel for driving website visits and for driving leads. And speaking about Mountain's platform specifically, we're positioned to help you measure that. So it's not such that you're just running the campaign and crossing your fingers and hoping that people end up visiting your website. What actually happens in this case is you're going to pixel your website just like you would whenever you're launching any new digital marketing channel. And that's going to allow us, like any other ad platform, to have a view into the traffic that visits your website. And our cross-device verified visits technology is the technology that's actually working to track that user behavior as they make that leap from the TV impression to the website visit. And we'll be able to tie the two together. So you'll be able to track precisely how many visits to your website came from the ad campaign that you ran. And again, also conversion tracking. So you'll be able to, when you log into your ad platform, you'll be able to track the amount of conversions that stemmed from the from your TV campaign as well. So it's a wholehearted yes, absolutely to that question.
Excellent. And we have a question from Amanda. What do you think is the minimum investment a company should make in CTV in order to run an effective campaign?
It's a good question. On our platform, our minimum today is $25,000 a month. I'd say that's a healthy amount to kind of get started, and I'd advise running that for, it depends on what, obviously, like with any other ad platform, it depends on your target audience size in terms of how long you would run that campaign, but you'd certainly want to run it for a month or two, just so the platform can kind of get up and running. The other thing to keep in mind about a platform like Mountain, for example, is that there's a lot of engineering behind the technology towards the optimization of your campaigns. And like any other ad platform, you need a learning period of time to run on the platform for it to be well optimized to serve your campaign, to deliver the best possible performance for you as well. So you got to make sure that you're running the campaign long enough for just like this advice isn't unique to Mountain. This advice is the same for any other performance marketing channel. Assuming your audience is big enough, you want to run your campaign long enough for the platform to kind of get up to speed, so that it can optimize for you. But as it relates to our platform, our minimum is 25,000. That's the right amount to see, to really give the platform a good shot in the early going. And then from there, I mean, nearly all of our customers immediately scale that budget within the first 3 months of running their campaign. So it's just the starting point.
Okay, and here's an industry-related question for you. Is there a type of B2B industry that performs best on CTV, or is there one that doesn't?
I mean, I'd say generally speaking, I chalk this up to like B2B marketing common sense. But what I'd say here is the ones that don't have like an excessively narrow audience, I think generally everyone's pretty much a pretty good candidate here. I mean, I've had some B2B marketing friends that are selling to an industry where the total addressable market is just like, 100 companies or 50 companies, something very excessively small. It would certainly be challenging to run a TV campaign effectively, to scale that up with such a narrow reach. But generally speaking, I'd say most B2B marketers are, especially the ones that have the resources to run a campaign like this, are going to be reaching a wide enough audience where they can certainly they can certainly realize success on this platform. What I'd also add to that too is again, there's like two flavors of conversion actions that we typically see with B2B marketers. There's those that have some sort of e-commerce transactional component, and there's those that are doing some level of lead generation or user sign-up action. Both can be accommodated on a platform like ours. The e-commerce transactional one, absolutely, because we have a lot of B2C customers who are running e-commerce businesses that are doing straight revenue attribution for their campaigns. Our platform's definitely well suited for campaigns like that. But also those that are just doing lead generation, as we talked about a moment ago, you could track those conversions on the platform as well. So pretty wide reach for B2B marketers, I'd say.
Okay, we have another question. This one's from Raphael, and he says, can you please discuss the optimization in the Mountain platform?
So optimization in the platform, it's that's really what the brains behind the operation is. We have something called dynamic spend optimization. We have a gigantic engineering team that just works on this technology specifically. And the way we like characterizing the optimization technology is comparing it to a human media buyer. With a human media buyer, you're talking about somebody who is oftentimes managing multiple clients, and they also work during business hours, and they also leave to go home at night, and they take vacation, and they have a lot going on. And so, truthfully, how many optimizations are you going to get daily out of a human media buyer? They also, as a human, you only have the capacity of taking in so much information as the basis for the optimizations that you make in some sort of campaign. You can only consume so much information and use that as data points to drive the optimization of your campaigns. Compare that to something like our dynamic spend optimization technology, where we have dozens of engineers dedicated to just this technology specifically, where it's collecting thousands of data points and it's optimizing campaigns on a minute-by-minute basis for every single advertiser and every single campaign that each advertiser is running. So it's continuous optimizations. And as it relates to every digital marketing platform, as you start getting site visits, as you start getting conversions, that data is then used to optimize the delivery of your campaign. That's the reason why you see all of these performance marketing campaign platforms, ours included. The performance increases over time because the platform gets smarter, so to speak, understands your target audience better, and delivers your campaign accordingly. And so it's the same here. I mean, this kind of goes back to that greater theme of this platform in some manner is indistinguishable from other performance marketing platforms that you use. Also in this manner too, there's a lot of horsepower behind the automated optimization technology that's going on behind the scenes. As I mentioned before, nearly all of our customers, after that first month of their campaign or two, they scale their budgets up because they're so happy with the optimizations. But what I should also add, though, is that this is not a platform where you're going in there and having to tinker with a bunch of sort of granular controls on an ongoing basis. The platform takes care of itself. You're going in there providing a budget and a goal, and the platform is taking care of optimizations. That's not something that's sort of offloaded to the user.
Okay. One more question for you. Would I need to change my ad length or style for CTV? Is there a type of B2B ad that performs best?
So in terms of length, I mean, that as we talked about earlier, the best, not even best practice, the platform requirement is a 15-second or a 30-second spot. So you absolutely need to conform to that. I'm glad someone asked about this because there's, again, very similar to other performance marketing platforms, there's an A/B testing capability built into the platform. So whoever it was that asked this, it's a savvy marketer. They are somebody who is constantly thinking about refining message and refining content to improve the performance of an ad. And fortunately, a platform like ours is built for someone who thinks in that manner. And so you can upload variations of your creative and identify the one that performs best and just bias towards that one. So in terms of like best practices that we've seen, it really depends. I think that the common thread of the advertisers that I've seen on our platform, something that's succeeded the most for us has been these B2B marketers are, they provide some sort of technology. And all of the successful campaigns that I've seen show the platform in the ad in some manner. So users are able to see that it's a real thing. They could see a product. They could see someone interacting with it and the impact of it. So, showing some sort of visual of the actual product. I guess to that end, it's not overly brand marketing focused. It is a little product marketing focused, the actual creative that seemed to be successful for the advertisers that we've seen. But again, you also have this built-in A/B testing component to the platform. So if you do have variations of the creative where one is brand marketing focused and one is more product marketing focused, one may have an offer, one doesn't have an offer, whatever it is, you can deploy all of these variations and identify the one that drove the most visits to your website or drove the most conversions for your website. It's totally measurable. So it's really on you. We do collect a lot. We do publish, I should say, a lot of best practices generally for connected television. So beyond just the framework of B2B marketers, there's best practices that we see just across all advertisers. And among those best practices are things like practical things, like a persistent URL displayed on the screen, a persistent like watermarked logo that someone can use for recall. So if you go to our website, you'll see a wealth of resources related to best practices for creative generally.
Perfect, thanks. We have time for one more question, Ali.
Cool.
Do you think there is still value in using LinkedIn and paid media alongside CTV?
Absolutely. And I want to be clear, I kind of like beat up LinkedIn a little bit earlier, but my team does a ton of LinkedIn advertising. I'm not above it myself. Absolutely. I'd say just thinking philosophically for a second as a B2B marketer, again, the situation that we have as B2B marketers in most instances is that we're trying to generate awareness among people who are continuously in some sort of research phase. People who are looking for a new solution or may not know that a solution exists, but they have a certain problem that they need to fix. And we're constantly reaching people who are educating themselves and doing some sort of research. And full immersion is really important for us. This is an area I think that B2B marketing has a bit of a leg up over B2C marketing. If you want to do full immersion in B2C marketing, it's difficult because you have virtually every ad channel and everything at your, as a possibility for creating full immersion, and it's hard to think of every single placement possible. And it could be very expensive to try to think of how I can fully immerse my prospect. It could be billboard ads, display ads, Facebook ads, airport ads, it could be everything. Whereas in B2B, I think having that more like insulated environment in B2B where people just use a handful of platforms, a handful of channels, it makes it a little bit easier for us to kind of create that sense of full immersion for our prospects. And so I think of all of these channels not as one replacing the other, but I think of them all as complementary. So by no means should you interpret today's conversation as a pitch to replace your search and LinkedIn campaigns with CTV. What I'm saying is you should make room for CTV to live alongside those campaigns. And just kind of going back to this concept of full immersion, think about that end user experience when you can introduce television into the mix. Until you introduce TV into the mix, it's a largely digital sort of full immersion that you're creating. Within just the confines of just a few platforms, you're trying to get your message out. But once you introduce television into the mix, especially possibly hitting these users off hours, that really goes a long way as a B2B marketer in creating that full immersion for your target prospect. And so for that effect alone, I think it's worth pursuing.
Great. Thanks, Ali, for this engaging presentation. And if we didn't get to your question, we will be sure to pass it along to Mountain. On behalf of MarTech, I want to thank everyone in our audience for attending this webinar. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.